Morning, everyone. Today with Dadbud, we look at a rear tire swap on a YZ250F. This is the Dadbud dirt bike shop. We got lots of new bikes here. We're heavy into motocross. The boy's got his practice bike here. This is the bike we're going to be working on today. Rear tire swap. Step one, warm up the tire you plan to install. Okay, that's as easy as laying it out in the sunshine. If you've got that, it's pretty cold here where I am, so you can see I have a heat gun inside the tire on low, just warming it up while I go take care of some other stuff. All right, undo and remove rear axle. This one's being a little sticky. Probably has been in there for a while, still going. You should never hammer on the end of it with anything. Get a pry bar instead from the other side, which in this case I'm just going to use a big flathead screwdriver. Get on the other side here and just pry this baby out. And of course, here she comes. Once I can get a hold of it, comes right out. Next, slide the tire in towards the back of the bike. Remove the chain off the sprocket. And then the wheel should just slide out. All right, here it comes. Now you can do yourself a little favor here. The flathead screwdriver you used to pull the axle, just stick it in between the brake pads and pry them open. That will make a nice big wide gap to slip the rotor back into come time to reinstall. All right, these are the main tools for tire change. Got your two reasonable quality tire spoons, one big flathead. You get a tire iron that kind of has a spoon shaped end. It's the exact same tool. 12mm wrench of some kind. This is just a little ratchet end. I find super handy for this. Valve stem removal tool. It's just a bolt with a valve stem remover tool that it comes on the end of an air stem normally. That's my camera. There we go. And air gauge. All right, before you get going, you don't want the tire laying on a concrete surface or marking up the sprocket doing that. So make sure I've got a piece of plywood under here. You can use a cardboard box. You can use whatever you need to, but always sprocket side down and always on a protected surface, whether that's a rubber mat or whatever you need, whatever you happen to have. All right, once you have the valve cap removed, insert your valve core removal tool into the valve and unscrew it. It just righty's tightsy, lefty loosey, regular thread. You can hear the air coming right away. Get close, don't let this thing fly out of your hand because the air is actually going to blow the valve out. If you hold on to it with your hand as you pull it out, that is the valve right there, or tire core, valve core, whatever you want to call it. That's what keeps the air in the tube. Okay, so next step. I use one of these little 12mm ratchet wrenches. Works like a charm for this. You can use any 12mm works. Most of them are pretty easy. This nut, you want to make sure you remove it completely because the valve has to come out. Now, next item is the rim lock. This just needs to be loosened off. It doesn't need to be completely removed. We just back the nut off all the way till we get right to just the end of the thread here is good enough. Okay, so now the tire needs to be pushed down on the rim to break the bead. You probably saw it and heard it right there. Away we go. Just keep working your way around. Usually once it pops, it's a little stuck here right at the rim lock. That's not uncommon, right? So I'm just flipping the tire over here quick. Whenever you do have it rotor side down, make sure you're applying even pressure. It's really easy to bend your rotor doing this. Okay, and that's why it's always sprocket side down. We're just kind of breaking the tire off the bead, and you can see it slipping off the rim and just going in there. That's what you got to have that. So back over onto the sprocket side. Get it ready to go. The rim lock that we undid, that is where we start. And right now it is currently kind of stuck in there because this tire's been on for a while. Take your tire iron tool, insert it just a couple of inches to one side of the rim lock. Okay, and then our second tool is going to get inserted just over here on this side here. And what we're going to do is work them in there and then try and work that rim lock out. And what'll happen is the rim lock, this will be easy to push in. All right, so you can spray a little lubricant right on the end of the tire iron just to make your life a little easier here. This is us wiggling it in right beside the rim lock like we just talked about. Okay, we're in there now. Okay, now a little bit of lubricant on the other one here. Move that out of the way so you don't stab yourself with it. As close as you can get to where that rim lock's stuck. Okay, so now when you pry both of these back, you're going to be pulling the tire edge out from the rim lock. Take them and you can just tuck them in right, just like that, right behind the rotor. Make sure they're in securely because if they pop out, they might hurt you. So now we can see the tire edge is popped up beyond the edge of the rim. Okay, this is the part where we're going to use the screwdriver. We turn the rim so that it's just like this. Now push on the edges of the tire. This raised part in the center of the rim is when this is crucial. The idea is you're going to try and slip the bead of the tire into that spot in the rim. All right? Do that, push down, use your knees, whatever you have to. And as you'll see that it's actually it will go in there. It's designed to do that. That's how this tire system works. Now I recommend covering these tire irons like this. This is where you're going to use your screwdriver or similar tool. Now, make sure you've got a bite and like 2-inch max, just enough. And up she comes, right? One more time, maybe. One more time. And we're on our way here. You can see we're into the easy zone. Away we go. So now just remove your tire irons out of the way. This is the only procedure that I recommend using a screwdriver or this style of tire iron for. It's just nice and easy with the rubber handle on it. And honestly, I've seen dozens of pinch tubes, but they almost never happen when you're taking it apart. It's always when you're putting it back together. So now, reach inside the tire, grab the tube, reef that sucker out of there. You reef it towards the valve stem is the last thing here, right? So here's what we can do. I'm just using a flathead screwdriver. You can use anything. Push that valve stem through. Okay. Torque on her. Tube's out. Okay, so now here's where things get kind of violent and you're probably going to mark up your rim. Again, the rim lock, location of the rim lock is always important because we talked about how the edge of the bead has to go into this part of the rim. And it just really can't do that well there. So that's what makes it always a good place to start. However, what we're trying to do here is get this second bead to jump over the rim. In order to do that, it's best if we can spray some tire lubricant. And we're going to start right across from the rim lock and just spray some tire lube inside so that it kind of runs down, because it's just that initial start is so hard to get to happen. Here we go. Take my big screwdriver here as a pry bar, get it through to the other side of the rim, pry down. Okay, you got to really pry here. You can hear the tire. It's really cold here where I live. So now just keep working it down like this. I just grab the spokes and go easy on the spokes. You see though, that we're like a good third of the way, just pop her off. And that's tire removal. It's that easy. Okay, so we can see that it's pretty dirty in here. There's our rim lock. That's what you're fighting against. The edges of the tires tuck in there like that. And when you do the bolt up, it pinches the tire to stop it from spinning on the rim. It's a very simple device, but without it, it's very easy to pop a tire. Okay, I'm gonna go wash this sucker up. So once again, this is the rim lock. Imagine the two beads of the tire in here like that. And it pinches the tire onto the rim to stop the rim from potentially spinning inside the tire. Okay, so that's there. The rim band goes on to protect the tube from the spokes. It's always best to start with the hole where the air valve goes, because that's what you're going to be lining up. So there's the hole in the rim for the air valve. Start with the strap right over top. Simply hold it there and just pull it right over top like this. Don't want any twists in it. You want it to be laying nice and neat. And in the end, you want that hole lined up, right? So it's over top. Make sure it's centralized. Oh, look, there's a spot where it's not. Oh, look, here's a great example of what can really bite you in the ass. Get that over there, the old panty snap. All right, looks good. Holes lined up, confirmed. Again, sprocket side down. I'll do it down here. Plenty of lubrication on the tire, which can be just soapy water. It doesn't have to mean you can buy specific tire lube, or you can just use soapy water. It's fine. Both sides. It says right here, not for highway use, but I've used them on the highway lots. They're fine. Okay, tire's been well lubricated on both sides. We've got it lined up for the appropriate direction. Here is the rim lock we've talked so much about. Get this edge as wide as it can go and slip the edge of the tire in there. Okay? It actually almost helps you get this tire started. Now, using one of your tire irons, the area of attack is going to be here, right? We're locked in behind the rim lock here. You can see, barely see there. There's the edge of the rubber. We're just going to start trying to pry this on from there. Okay? There's a little more. A little more. A little more. Starting to feel like I might need a second tire iron here. It's really kind of wanting to jump out on me, which is no big deal. Just stick the second one in and go for the pull. I'm actually going to switch it over here. It's not a good view for you, but it's way easier for me to see here. What's going on? Okay. And again, kind of just step your tire irons. You're going to get to it's going to start to get fairly tight on you. Right? But that's when we have to make sure that we talked about getting the bead of the tire in this bead, but it's on the other side, into this center groove, right? That's where it has to be in order to get as much stretch out of it as possible. Okay, so here. We're almost there. You can see there's just a little bit left. This is always the toughest part, the scourge of any junior tire changing guy or girl. There we go. Done. So long as you make sure that edge is, this bead edge is in the center groove of the tire as much as it can be, that's going to make a huge difference on how difficult it is to get this job done. Just brushing everything off with your hands is fine. You can wash it too, depending on where you're at. Sometimes at the track you've got limited supplies. All right, so you lay your tube on top. Look for your hole. All right, here's the hole right here the valve stem was through. So you put the valve stem there right now. Okay? Now, lift the tire up, tuck the tube in. Make sure that valve stem is staying lined right up with the valve stem hole. Okay? Because this is one of the tricky parts where guys have lots of trouble. Okay, get about a third or so of your tube in there. Make sure you're nice and lined up. Now you can use any spacer you want. I use the handle of this screwdriver, like that. But that makes sure the tube is not hung up on it. Okay, now from the other side, we take one of our tire irons, right? You can actually see the valve stem hole in there, right there. Take one of our tire irons like this, pull the tire like this, tuck it behind the sprocket, like that, lay it back down, turn it so that your hands go in there. Now you should be able to just manipulate the valve stem with your fingers and try and get it to come through that hole. And there we go. It's through. Now it's the time, hold it with your finger, the back of it with your fingers, get this nut started that was on it when you took it out the first time. Do it up all the way right now. This will save you some grief down the road here. So now, take this out, take your spacer out, install the rest of your tube. All right, this goes inside the tire, just lift the tire up, push it in there just like this. Some guys really like heavy duty tubes. You won't be liking them that much when you got to change your own tires because they're a lot tougher to deal with. I find kind of a medium duty is sort of the best all around use tube, not too heavy, not too light. Tends to survive as good as anything else will. All right, so we're at the stage now where we're going to reinstall our valve stem. So it's pretty easy to remember which way it goes in. This tool fits onto it just like that. That's right. There's actually a hole for to fit into, and you're turning it like that, and it threads in there. Okay, so put it on the end of the tool. You actually can just shove the thing in there. It's kind of a weird angle. I'm trying to work for the camera here. There we go. Put it in. Use your valve stem tool. Turn it back in. And it needs to be, don't mess around. Make sure you got it pretty good and snug because you do not want to be pulling a tube out of your tire later on because you think it's leaking and it turns out you just did a shitty job of doing up the valve stem. We'll give her a little puff of air right now. So all we're trying to do right now is just get the tube inflated enough that it's kind of occupying all the space in it. We actually don't want any real pressure in it. We just want it to be not flinging it flat. There we go. I heard it take a bit of air there. So one of the tests I use actually is you can push on this, on the valve stem. It shouldn't be, it should hardly just let out a whisper when you can hear it slowing down. About there's good, right? It should be nice and soft to the touch in there. Okay, so now we turn the tire like this, and you can see that you can see the tube semi-inflated in there, right? See it's soft, but it is just occupying the space. There's no folds in it. So now what I do is I kind of, while I'm holding it open, spray your lube on there like that. What I'm doing is when I push down on the tire, it kind of opens it up at the bottom there. And if you get lube on your tube, like I'm doing right now, the chances of pinching it with your tools are much less. We're well lubed. The rim lock. The tools. Now, when you reach in here with your tool, you can feel the actually semi-inflated tube, right? So you kind of want to make sure you're pushing it out of the way. Do a lot of this. Give the tube a chance to jump out of the way of the tool, right? Because now it's all slippery and semi-inflated, so it kind of wants to do that. Again, right on the other side of the rim lock, we're doing the same thing. Now, before you tuck the tire, you can see the rim lock moving in there with my finger pushing it. Push it in there and hold her down, right? Now, you're going to have to make a couple more tucks. This is when you're going to wish you had another arm. But you can use your knee like I'm doing right here. Okay? Be very careful with when you put the tool in, you can feel the tube, right? Okay. Oh, I took a little too big of a bite, but I can use my knee there. All right. Switching to this direction. We're going past the valve stem. There it is. Okay. So now I'm using my knee to really push that bottom bead into the center of the tire like we talked about. It's actually kind of handy doing them on the floor. So this is the part where everybody struggles, right? You can see the valve stem actually stops the bead of the tire from going in. So I'm going to start working it from this side now because I want to keep as much of that bead into that bottom part of the, or into that deep part of the rim. Okay. Again, now this is where everybody pinches their tube. Make sure you're really working your tire iron back and forth like this. Make sure you're really working your tire iron back and forth like this. Give that tube a chance to jump out of the way. Okay. Looks like one or two more here and we'll have her. Okay, just really wiggle it around. Give that tube a chance to get out of the way. All right. Oh yeah, we're going to get it on the next one for sure. Again, this is where you really want to just make sure you're not hooking that tube. Just nice and slow. It's always way quicker. Tire's installed. So now you're going to give it the big puff. It's going to probably take quite a few pounds to seat it. This is a very terrible air chuck. All right, here we go. Holy. Went from freaking Captain Awesome to Captain Useless. Go. See the feed rising? Jumped up the whole way. Check the other side. Looking good. Perfect. Now. All right. So now we want to set our tire pressure. You'll hear all kinds of people talk about different tire pressures they're running. Definitely it's your personal choice. Generally sort of the low teens is 12, 13, 14 is where most people are running tire pressures for motocross events. So if you're in rockier conditions or real hard tracks where you're going to have some harder landings, I definitely recommend 15 to 18 pounds to avoid those pinch flats. So here we just put our gauge on there. We're at 20 something, that's too much. This time of year where we're riding, we're going to go for about 15. There we go. We're good. Perfect. All right. Now, using your 12 mil, tighten up this thing here. Got a little finger tightening left to do. I find the 12 mil ratchet wrench is a great little tool for this job. Valve stem cover back on. Always run caps. Don't cheap out. And then your rim lock. Now, there's no doubt a specific torque value for this device, but I've got a little stubby 12 mil, just about as tight as I can get her. That's good. All right, time to reinstall on the bike. Okay, time to get this tire back on. You can see this axle looks pretty dry. I mean, it looks very dry. It looks terrible. So, best thing to do, clean her up a little. It's going to make your life way easier. Pretty simple going. Recommend giving it a spray of WD-40. Just lube it up like that. WD-40 makes a great little cleaner kind of thing too. It's not just for loosening up bolts. You can see the axle looks much better. You can see you have quite a bit of blackness has come off of it. I also recommend that we clean up this part of the swing arm just so everything sits really nice. Make sure there's no debris and dirt in there. Your axle and stuff does not like it. Despite the name dirt bike, dirt bikes do not like dirt. This is a constant source of axles being tough to remove, is where they pass through the caliper stop or holder or whatever you want to call it, part of the rear brake mechanism. Dirt migrates in there during operation and then ends up sort of cementing the axle in. All right, let's start to look pretty good there. Okay, aligned. See the brake pads, we spread those open, right? That's going to make our life much easier here to come reassembly. Now I'm just going to put a little bit of grease on my axle. Just makes it doesn't take much. One pump on a grease gun. You're Just wipe a little bit on there. This just helps stuff, stops it from rusting, and you know, all the good stuff grease does for things. But you don't need much, because the bore is so tiny, or such close tolerance, that it's going to end up just piling up all over the place and making a friggin' mess if you put too much on. Okay, but that's lots. Perfect. All right. Axle's laying in a spot where it's going to be easy to grab. Tire's going in. Roll your tire into position. Just kind of wiggle her in there without knocking the brakes around too much. Okay, so now lots of tires, well, these ones included, have these spacers that go over top of or at the ends. You want to make sure that those are being held in the right spot. That's why it's kind of nice. You see how easy it was to get that rotor back in there? Push the wheel as far ahead as it'll go. Now is when you install the chain. Chain is on. And slide the axle in. Here we go. Now it's at the brake. Slide the brake so it lines up with the axle hole here. There we go. The axle's already coming through. Make sure it's turned to the way it's supposed to be seated on this side. On the sprocket side. There we go. Axle's flush. Install the rest of your pieces. You can even clean the back of this, won't hurt. Make sure, you want to just make sure that when you're tightening up the axle nut, that you're not tightening up on a pile of mud. Goes in there. Our nuts in here. Do not start nuts with impact guns. There we go. Once you're done checking chain tension, which should be right unless it was out of whack before we took the wheel off, it'll be right. You can just, but I recommend you put something in the chain like this, just to pull the axle tight against the stops, and do your axle up. Proper torque. Good to go. So now, let's just tire lube on there. Okay, you gotta remember to pump up your brake, because your brake is not going to be working after you've spread that. Like, see, here, pull the bike over to the edge of the stand. And hopefully we're still in shot there. When I pump, oh, we're already back, we're pumped up. It's good. All right, we're good. Rear brakes are working. Confirm anytime that you take your back wheel off, confirm that you have back brakes, because it's a lot easier to do it in the shop than it is to confirm while you're riding over the bank.